Hey, what's up, everybody? This is the one and only Pop Culture Junkie here. Well, I just finished watching Solo, a Star Wars story. I want to share my thoughts and opinions in this review. I will let you know right away that this review is going to be filled with spoilers, so don't think for a minute I'm going to wait till the very end to spoil anything. It's going to be all throughout the review, so if you don't want to know anything yet, if you haven't seen the movie yet, hold off and come back and let me know your thoughts as well then. So Solo, a Star Wars story is the newest spin-off or standalone film similar to Rogue One, where it's more of an origin story. It's a little bit more of a bridge to connect events from the prequels to the original trilogy, and it takes place between episode 3 and 4, and the story is basically the origin story of Han Solo. Now, whenever they were advertising and talking about this movie when it was still being made, I'm thinking, okay, we're going to finally learn the origin of Han Solo, the character, where he came from, how he was raised, who were his parents. I mean, just lots of things that we don't have anything mentioned in the previous film. So we're going to learn a lot about him, right? Wrong. Okay, wrong. We don't get to learn anything about his childhood except that he just grew up and had to do whatever he could to survive to stay alive. We're introduced to Han Solo at the age of about, 19, maybe 21, and he has a lover named Kira, played by Emilia Clarke from Game of Thrones. They live on the planet of Corellia, where they basically have to steal and bribe and do all kinds of things they can to survive, because the Corellia is under the control of a syndicate, kind of like a mob mentality, really. You get a lot of that in this movie, where you have a lot of discussions about different syndicates that are in different systems and planets, almost like the Empire allows there to be these kinds of mobs or gangs, as long as they probably give them a taste of something, and they're allowed to stay in business that way. So you get a lot of that mentality. A little bit of an old Western feel to it as well at some points. If you watch the movie, you'll know what I mean. So we're introduced to Kira and Han. I'll just say Han. And Han has stolen some hyperfuel that he wants to use as a way to bribe a Imperial officer to allow them passage onto a transport to get out of Corellia and finally get free of the Syndicate. Well, when they reach the transport location, the officer allows them to do the exchange, except the people that Han stole the hyperfuel from are catching up to them, and they catch Kira before they can get to Han. So they take her. Han gets away. He vows to come back and save her. So Han does not have any other way to get off the planet, so he goes over to the Imperial recruiting area. I thought that was kind of funny. They had this little Imperial recruiting station. It reminds you of something from like the 40s, where they're like, come fight for your country. It was very funny. Han goes up there and says, hey, I want to apply to be a pilot in the Imperial Navy. And the Imperial officer goes, okay, fine. Your name? Han. He's like, okay. Last name? He's like, I don't have one. He's like, okay, well, Solo then. Okay, Han Solo will be your name. And that's how Han gets his name, is from an Imperial officer at a recruiting table. It's bizarre. I don't know why Han would have kept that if it was not really his given name. So therefore, what's Han's real name? Where did he really come from? Okay, that's one mystery right there that we're left with. They don't address this later on at all. We then fast forward 3 years, and Han has been kicked out of the Navy for insubordination, and he's now an infantryman. He runs into a gang led by Tobias Beckett. He finds out that they have a job that they're going to pull to get a lot of money, and he hopes this is going to be his way of making some money to buy a ship to go back and save his lover, Kira, who he hasn't seen in the last 3 years. Tobias is not convinced about Solo, so he actually turns in Solo to a Imperial officer, who then they say, you know what, traitor, we're going to put you in a cell with a beast, and the beast will kill you. Turns out the beast is Chewbacca, and that's how we're introduced to Chewbacca. Of course, I know in the extended storylines of like the extended universe that Chewbacca was a slave of the Empire, and that's how Han Solo freed him. So it was a nice little twist, I guess, of how they had Han Solo save Chewbacca, because once he's in the cell with Chewbacca, you realize that Han is able to speak the same language as Chewie, and they work together to get out of the cell. Tobias is now impressed by this and decides to go ahead and bring aboard Chewbacca and Solo to join them on their mission. Now the mission is they're trying to steal a large shipment of this hyperfuel again and give it to and sell it to make a lot of money. Well, the mission does not go as planned. 2 of Tobias's crew are killed in the attempt, and that's when we realize that Tobias was actually hired by somebody named Voss, and he was supposed to bring him the shipment. But because of the failed mission, now Tobias is expecting Voss to just kill him because he failed. We go meet Voss, and we come across Paul Bettany playing this character, and I think he did an amazing job as the villain. Once they're at Voss's ship, Solo runs into Kira, who apparently is now the lieutenant for Voss, so she works for him. They explain the situation of the failed mission and manage to persuade Voss to allow them another way of getting him the fuel that they promised originally. They agree to go to Kessel and steal it from the spice mines, and to do so, Kira says you're going to need a fast ship, which means they got to go find somebody that she knows that has the fastest ship in the galaxy. Of course, we're talking about Lando Calrissian and the Millennium Falcon. So the group then goes to find Lando Calrissian, and he is, of course, the smuggler and pilot of the Millennium Falcon. Han challenges Lando to a game of sabacc, a card game, and they wager Lando's ship. Lando, using cards that he had hidden up his sleeve, wins the game, but still is convinced by Tobias and Kira to go ahead and let them use his ship, which has actually been impounded. So they escape and head to Kessel to steal the hyperfuel. Once there, L3-37, Lando's robot love interest, causes a distraction, and they basically do a prison break style riot, and they cause a distraction to where they're able to steal the hyperfuel, which leads us to the Kessel Run. This is where, of course, Han Solo always bragging that this is the ship that made the Kessel Run in 12 parsecs. At one point, Lando says, oh, you can't make it in 20. It's like, watch me. So they steal the hyperfuel. They go to Severin, another planet, where they're going to meet up with Voss. Once they get there, though, they are confronted by Infamous Nest. Now, Infamous Nest is the gang is the leader of the gang that they first encountered on the first attempt to steal the fuel, and when they failed it, of course. Turns out, Infamous Nest is not part of the Empire. Instead, that's right, it's played by a woman. She is actually against the Empire. She's basically the beginning of the rebels. She's one of the beginnings of the groups that are against the Empire and want to stop them from coming into more power. They conceive a plan to turn on Voss to where he never gets his hands on the actual hyperfuel, and instead try to trick him into getting the freedom for both Kira and also still getting the money that they all need. The plan does not go well. Voss is made aware of the plans because Tobias is not 100% willing to turn on him. Voss, once he lets everyone know that he's been in on the plans, he instructs Beckett to take Chewbacca along with the fuel cells. Han confronts Voss, and Kira steps in to assist Voss, only to then turn on her master, and they fight. Now, Voss is using these little double-bladed knife-looking weapons that have little red laser on it. Looks a little bit like it's a knife lightsaber-style weapon. They never refer to it as lightsabers, anything like that. Of course, you don't see lightsabers in the movie, really, because there's no Jedi. The Jedi have been wiped out. This is past Episode 3, of course. Kira ends up killing Voss, and then tells Solo that he needs to go ahead and go save Chewbacca. He needs you. You need him. And you need to stop Beckett from taking the fuels. Solo leaves, and then Kira, before leaving herself, she takes Voss's ring off his finger, puts it into a little machine on the desk, and it triggers a signal to a hologram. We get a hologram pop up in the room, and you see somebody sitting in a chair, and from a distance you think, oh, is this the Emperor? Is she actually part of the Empire? Is she part of the rebellion or not? What is she part of? And we see somebody just sitting there in a robe. Then they stand up and they reveal to be Darth Maul. I'm not kidding you. Darth Maul is in this movie. Yes. I was very surprised. I did not see this coming, but Darth Maul is alive and well in that universe, which is great because they tie in not only the prequels, but they also tie in the Clone Wars. So I like that. That's very intriguing how, once again, they've managed to bring something from the prequels and make it special. So there we go. We have Darth Maul making an appearance. We find out that Darth Maul is actually her superior, so she's following the orders of Darth Maul this whole time. So what does this mean? Is she part of the Sith? Is she going to become a Sith Lord herself? Is she just under the mind control? What is it? We don't know, and that's exactly where we're left with, okay? The movie plays it very safe throughout the entire movie, and then at the last 10 minutes we get all the other stuff happening, and then it's actually starting to get really interesting, and then that's when we hit the credits. It seemed like they wrapped everything up in 10 minutes and then left us with a lot of unanswered questions. Solo, at the same time, confronts Beckett. They have a showdown, and he kills Beckett and saves Chewie. They end up giving the hyperfuel cells to Infamous Nest so that they can use it for, once again, to combat against the Empire. Infamous Nest offers Solo and Chewbacca an opportunity to join them and help be part of the rebellion. But Solo, of course, is like, not my fight, not this, no. And it's interesting because she says to him, well, maybe one day you'll change your mind. And it's a nice little nod back to episode 4, where Luke Skywalker on Yavin is telling Solo, hey, how can you just leave them? They need your help. The rebels are outnumbered. They need help. And he's like, hey, it's not my fight, kid. This is what I do. I'm a smuggler. I get my money. I don't get, I don't mess with this stuff. This is not my problem, when really it is. But we know how that turned out. Solo does, of course, help out. So afterwards, Solo and Chewbacca track down Lando, who had actually just deserted everybody once they got to Severin. They find Lando, and Solo's about to punch Lando for deserting them, and that's when he discovers the cards up Lando's sleeve. So without letting him know he knows that, he challenges him again to a card game, again with the Millennium Falcon on the line. And when Lando tries to reach for his hidden cards, he realizes, I don't have them anymore, and he's stuck with the cards he has in his hand. Solo wins the card game, and he gets control of the Millennium Falcon. Chewie and Solo fly off in the Falcon, and that's how the movie ends. So it was entertaining, I will say that for sure. It was entertaining. Like I said, they played it very safe. They didn't really do a whole lot to make you think, oh, they're going to try something really risky here. No, they didn't. They played it very safe. And honestly, there was not a whole lot of things that I did not already expect to see in the movie based on the previous knowledge of, things that have happened in the extended universe. Basically covering how Solo gets possession of the Millennium Falcon, and also how Chewie and Solo become friends. Those are kind of stories that we all knew. You just finally get to see it on the big screen. So things I enjoyed about the movie. Number one, I loved the visuals of the movie itself. I thought the special effects were amazing. I was very impressed with Alden Ehrenreich as Han Solo. I went in with very low expectations that he could pull off a believable portrayal of Han Solo, based, of course, on my longtime admiration of Harrison Ford as Han Solo. But he did a phenomenal job. He had a lot of charisma, and it really came alive on the screen. Woody Harrelson is just Woody Harrelson to me in a lot of his movies, but I find him very entertaining, and I enjoyed his character, and I liked the fact that you didn't really know at all times whether you could trust him or not. But I enjoyed his character. I do wish we could have seen more of him, but obviously, this is a standalone Star Wars film, similar to Rogue One. If they're not in Episode 4, they're probably not going to make it out of this movie. The character of Kira was very curious, because we didn't have anything told to us about her previous life and where she was for those 3 years. We hear Voss mention several times to Solo, you don't know what she's done in the last few years. She's done unspeakable things you can't imagine. And it's like, I want to know what those were. But I guess since they tell us at the end that she's actually been working for Darth Maul, we're just supposed to connect the dots on our own. Other characters in the movie, such as Val Beckett, played by Thandie Newton, was nice, but she was really in and out of the film, okay, along with the multi-armed character that was part of Tobias's group as well. I wish we could have seen more of those two. L337 was entertaining. That was the love interest droid for Lando, and it was entertaining, but it was unfortunate we didn't get more from that character. And I did find it weird that they basically took her brain and inputted it into the Falcon. So is she still part of the Falcon to this day? I wonder. I don't know. Paul Bettany as Dryden Voss was very good. He was a great villain. I really liked him. Now, the things I did not care for. Now, first of all, this was a Star Wars film, and for the first time ever, we did not have R2-D2 or C-3PO making an appearance. That's right, not even a small little cameo like they did in Rogue One. Not once. Very shocking that didn't happen. Number 2, the dice that Han Solo has on the Millennium Falcon, kind of like hanging it on his rearview mirror. They made a big deal about these in The Last Jedi, especially the moment at the end where Luke Skywalker gives the dice back to Princess Leia. It was a very touching moment. It should have been. Well, we see the dice several times throughout this movie, but we never get any kind of mention as to where these come from, what the significance is of them. The only thing we ever figure out or learn is that they bring him good luck. How and why, we don't know. So I wish they had covered that, at least mentioned it, whether they came from somebody that raised him, he found them, and they brought him luck for this reason, and that's why he's always kept them. Just wish they would have covered that. And finally, the number one thing I did not care for in this film was the portrayal of Lando Calrissian, played by Donald Glover. Now, Donald Glover is a very funny actor. He's a great comedy actor, and he's done some good stand-up stuff. But I cannot take him serious as any kind of a serious actor, and especially not when he's trying to portray a very iconic role in that of Lando Calrissian. I thought the casting was wrong from day one when they first announced this, and now that I have seen the movie, I can honestly say I still believe that. I still believe they could have found somebody else better to portray this character. If anything, I would say just bring in Billy D. Williams and have him voiceover. Because the voice that Donald Glover used for this was not good. It did not connect it to the original Lando Calrissian at all. It felt more like Donald Glover was trying to do more of a parody of Lando Calrissian rather than an actual impersonation of the real character or embody the character itself. It just didn't come off natural. It seemed more as, again, a parody or a very low impersonation. And unfortunately, it's just a hard role to cast because Billy D. Williams played that role perfectly. It is an iconic character that we all grew to know and like over 40 years ago, so it's very tough for them to recast on that. The only thing that made me think of Lando was the cape, but the mannerisms and the voice just did not work, so just wish that they had done better casting on that. Now, I have heard already that there's talk of maybe doing a Lando Calrissian movie or even a trilogy. If that's at all true, I hope they will recast. Well, there we have it. That was my review on Solo, a Star Wars film. Like I said, it was enjoyable. Was it the best Star Wars movie ever? Far from it, no. My worst movie still would be The Last Jedi. But I did enjoy this movie. I enjoyed the nostalgia feel of always getting to see Star Wars and Star Wars characters. And it was nice. You got to see a few little Easter eggs that if you have seen every movie like I have multiple times, you'll get a little bit of a chuckle when you see certain things or you'll see certain characters in the background. Once again, though, I think they just played it too safe. They weren't willing to take any chances and show us something special or different that we didn't see coming, I guess, except for the little appearance of Darth Maul at the end. Where they're going to go from here, who knows? Because, again, this was supposed to be just a standalone movie, but with all the unanswered questions and the cliffhanger pieces that they did not give us any closure on, we need a second Solo film, or we need some kind of spin-off on top of this with these characters to answer some questions. Otherwise, we're just really left up to who knows what we want to come up with. Now, of course, we have to keep in mind the fact that the original directors of the film were replaced by Ron Howard very late in the production to where they were pretty much wrapping the film, and then they brought in Ron Howard to do reshoots and rewrites. So who knows what the original plans were? Who knows if we'll ever see the original version of the film that they were going to give us? So lots of unanswered questions. Hopefully the Blu-ray or DVD will have some deleted scenes, and we'll see what could have been. Well, for everyone out there, if you haven't seen the movie yet, and you're going to go check it out this weekend, I hope you enjoy it, and hopefully you'll come back and leave me some comments on what your thoughts were on the movie. There we have it. So hope you enjoyed the review of mine, and I'll see y'all later. Thanks for watching. Take care. This is Pop Culture Junkie, signing out, and hey, may the Force be with you.